All right, cool, dude. So thank you for joining and hopping on today. I really
Yeah,
appreciate your time, man.
my pleasure.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. So listen, let's start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and maybe how you got into this business in the first place.
My name is Pete Kontrafouris, by the way, if any of you don't know me, but my my real estate journey began 2015. Once I graduated college, and I got licensed, slow start, part time. Was working at my dad's restaurant, just to kind of like make money, do
Yeah.
real estate on the side. Even though I was working like two full time jobs, it felt like because the amount of time you put into real estate and the amount of time you put into a restaurant, as anybody can tell you, is absolutely awful. So you're working 100 hours a week, no breather, no nothing. And the real estate side of it feels like you're, just eating shit, every single day of your life. So to actually go and make some money in the restaurant sector felt good, because it was an immediate response, and that felt good, and I was able to like help pay some bills, so that was good. But I felt like kind of hindered me in my real estate side of my business, and my dad was getting older and all that stuff. So the landlord decided not to extend our lease where we were. It was the best thing that ever happened because my dad was 72 at the time. He's like, you know what? They're not extending our lease. We've been here for 40 years. Let's bang up shop. I'm retiring, going to Greece, enjoying my life and all that stuff, coming back, see my grandkids, whenever I feel like it. And he lives a life now. So needless to say, 2017, I went into real estate business full time. That was like my back against the wall. And I always say that was like the best thing that ever happened. It was the worst thing and the best thing because I just bought a house. My mortgage payments was 44, mortgage tax and insurance was $4,400 a month,
Jeez.
all together.
Yeah.
I had just bought a new Jeep. We didn't think our lease was ending. So I thought I was having some money, rolling in. So I did all this stuff, and, that was my back against the wall. I'm like, now I got to make some money in this field. Like enough is enough. I got to push it to the limit here. And that's what I did. That was the best thing ever. 2017, I became full time. I was producing as a single agent, good numbers. So I think my first actual full time in the business year in the business, I did like 36 transactions, which was a good
Wow.
amount for,
Yeah.
just a single agent. 2018, I did more than that. 2019, every year just kept getting better. As a single agent, I was doing platinum level, which is like the highest level you could do in real estate as a single agent. I was doing that by myself. And then, it's just everything was becoming crazy. I needed support around me and a team. So I would say early 2020, like 2019, late 2019, early 2020, I'd started a team, which is the Kontrafouris group. Now at the time, we're the Mr. Cell group at Remax. And everything was good. Everything is still excellent. We're doing very good numbers and all that stuff. That was like a little bit of the journey that I kind of like talk people, or make it a point to tell people, because like it's so hard to start in this business, and I
Yeah.
had such a slow start. But once you find that like back against your wall moment, that's when you actually can really do good in this business. I think a lot of it is excuses and like mental roadblocks that we give ourselves from actually going forward and really like prospering to our fullest potential.
Yeah.
So yeah, fast forward, we have right now we have a team of, I believe we're about 9. We just added a couple more key people. So we're a team of about 9, and we have our own office in West Milford. We're, still a Kontrafouris Real Estate Group. We're brokered by eXp Realty. We're working on our own office space in our town. We're just finalizing everything with the state and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's like a little bit of my journey, how I started, where we're at today. Last year, we did near 100 transactions. We only had about 6 actual team members. A couple of them are part-time too. So, our numbers are definitely solid. We're cranking numbers out. My goal was build the team and do it organically. I see a lot of teams get formed and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, let's face it, like think how many teams really shouldn't be teams.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it's the cool thing to do right now. And I feel like I feel like that's going to fizzle out, and a lot of the singular agents going to come back, where they're doing buy and sell and everything in between, like the traditional agent was doing. But yeah, that's kind of how I started, where we're at. I mean, if you have like any like specific things that you want to ask, feel free and shoot
No, I just
to
like I like your
ask.
back against the wall. I feel,
Yep.
to relate to myself, never really discuss this with too many people, but I remember when I got into investing, so I was working a full-time job in New York City at that time. And I would always say, man, the best thing that could happen to me is to get fired, because I would never leave, right? Like I just didn't want to
Yeah.
leave. I had a good job. Like what was it going to take? So it's funny that
Yeah.
resonates with me a little bit because no, your father, you like you both kind of had this nice thing going on for you, this restaurant, right? That was stopping you
Yeah.
to move to the next thing. I'm sure you did all right as an agent, but you're like, well, I'm making money here. Like it's kind of scary to take that step. And then your
Yeah.
back was against the wall. I mean, number one, you had bills to pay for it. Number two, then you didn't have an option, right? You didn't have another job. So you're going to have to do something else. So I thought that was pretty
Exactly.
cool that you really did get
Yeah.
forced into having to do it.
You're that was like the best moment. I mean, we're I was comfortable and stuff, and the thing was I also felt bad because my dad was older. I felt like a lot of the pressure was on him to do all that. So I felt like compelled. And that was like the worst thing because it's like I want to leave, but I also felt bad too. And it was almost like the stars aligned, man.
Yeah.
And everything happens for a reason. I'm a wholehearted believer of that. And it did. And I really can't complain. My second year in the business, that I got married 2018, and then a little bit later that year, we were having our first kid. And then if you really think your back is against the wall when you have like, bills and car loans and a mortgage and all that, wait until you hear your first kid is on the way.
Yeah.
And you're just like, holy shit. Like this is like real. Like I'm a real person now. Like you don't feel like you're a
Yeah.
real person until you hear your first kid is coming. And you're like, dude, it's not just me. Like now it's like a family I gotta support.
Yep.
And that's like such a real freaking moment, dude. So, and everybody experiences that. I'm sure you did too. I know you got kids and like you were probably like, wow, this is really real. Like I'm a man now.
So I always had
you
this
know?
myself, was like, I never really I was like, whatever happens, like I'll just move back in with my parents. Like I'll just move, I always had this like laissez-faire, like, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. Like you said, when all of a sudden it was like, wow, like I can't just move back in with my this whole idea that I had, that was like, worst comes to worst, we'll just move back home. We'll move in with my wife's parents, like just living and not really being too concerned, even
Yeah,
when you
they,
have the
they don't
bills,
want
right?
they don't want to hear they don't want to hear a screaming baby,
Right.
so you can't move in with them.
Who
Yeah,
was I going
dude,
to
you're
be too?
right.
Like, what kind of dad am I? Just like, we'll just move back with you. Now I have a real responsibility. Like, now it's up to me. Let's get this done.
For
We're just going
sure.
to move forward and never have that fallback ever again. Just take it off the table. We're not going to do that.
For sure.
That's awesome. I know you have two kids now. How did you feel when you found out that you were going to have the second one? I feel like it happened again to me. So I was like, wait a second. I was like, I got to make even more money
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Daycare
So
times two gets really expensive.
yeah, so each kid, you better add 50, 60 grand a year to what you're making. Yeah. That's what I thought. I'm like, okay, now I gotta make now I can just kind of push it to make extra money now. But that it was more that first kid because I was 28. It was that first kid that I was like, all right, now it feels real. The second, my second, our daughter was like, it just like added to it, but it wasn't as like, okay, this is real for me. Like
Yeah.
now this is manhood now.
You already had that
So
down, the manhood part, right? You're like, all right, now I
yes,
have to do this. I'm an adult. It was just an extra, like,
yes,
okay, we just got to do more of this, right? Also, man. So about your team. So you were doing about 36 transactions, which sounds like a lot. Did you go the team route because you're like, I can only do so much myself. I'm kind of maxing out. I've got a bunch of
yeah.
leads. If I bring somebody on, maybe I can give them a few. So maybe I'll still close 36, but if they close 10, then we close 46. We're better off. Is that kind of how it happened?
Actually, I didn't. So what happened was I was at Remax and I wanted like people wanted to come work with me and stuff like that. Remax is a great company, but the problem is the model is not the most team friendly, number one. And number two, it's a lot of fees you're paying, a lot of upfront costs and all that stuff. So our biggest thing was like we have a solid team, like we can go anywhere. We don't care about the company, like we're at Caldwell or Keller. Like to me, it's all the same stuff. I think it's just who takes less of your money and who, really you just want to be in a place that's who is designing the best structure for you to run your team and run the model that you want to run. So we were there. I had people wanted to come to work with me. I'm like, dude, if I add a team member, it's $700 a month just for you. And then that's not even including my desk fees and all my other fees like that of what I'm paying. So I was there, but I had people want to work with me. I'm like, all right, I got to figure something out. So I noticed it was organically that people wanted to come to work with me. Like I had my first team member was an older guy, late 50s, didn't know the tech side of the business, was really a sharp salesperson, could close a freaking, a Eskimo selling a mice, like
Yeah.
he just a closer. So that was my first team member. And I was able to like help him and take off a lot of burden off of his shoulders just by helping him out and doing things like more efficiently and adding tech into stuff. And then from there, my second team member was quite the contrary. He was, a 24-year-old kid, was flipping, he just got his license. He wanted to flip a house, some houses, just started flipping them. Now he's a full-time cop, but he's, also doing real estate. He's got deals under contract now. That was my second team member. And I still did that at Remax in their model. So just for them alone, I was paying $1,400 a month on top of my $1,500 a month. And it's just, to me, it was just a lot of like unnecessary cost up front and risk. So I'm like, all right, we had to make a move there. Like I had to do my own thing. So, that's when I had bought my first investment property. So I had my house, but I was like, I got to buy an investment property because I felt like the office where I'm located in my market, I feel like if nobody sees an office space, they're either not going to take you seriously or it's just something's going to be missing, right? So I bought a mixed use investment property where my office is on the first floor and I have residential upstairs. And that offsets a lot of costs for me too. And we felt like the EXP model really just worked for us, even though we're our own, it feels like we're our own brokerage, we're our own team and all that stuff and do our own thing. We just needed a model that we felt supported us because I didn't want to deal with the day-to-day activities of, okay, who's not doing continuing ed, who's not, what's accounting doing? Like I didn't want to have to deal with all the back end stuff of actually owning an office and all the hand holding and all the BS you deal with. So I just felt like this model worked out for us. But needless to say, I know I'm probably getting off on a tangent, but I just think all that stuff is important with how I grew the team because then
Yeah.
from there I grew it to for a while we had like 6 people and then we just added a couple other people. And it's because of that stuff that I was doing that I was able to kind of spread them out. So even if I have a team member that I'm building up, trying to get busy, I'm not, shelling out unnecessary money for them in order to build my team.
Okay, that makes sense. And now, plus, as I'm thinking here, you have this investment property, and you were paying basically $3,000 a month in rent, in essence, to Remax.
Exactly.
You're able to
for
roll
like
that and
a
let
little
like,
box of square
yeah.
feet. Yeah, it was like 25 square feet of office space for nothing, like
Now I bet
absolutely
you're, I
nothing.
mean, not to be personal, but I feel like you're probably paying less than that after your tenants
Yeah,
pay the rent to the mortgage. So like complete win-win right there.
it was a complete win-win. Yeah, I mean, COVID had just started. I'm under contract on this place. I'm like, at that point, I didn't know where the real estate market was going to go. I'm like, dude, I think it's going to be the end of the world. And I mean, knock on wood, real estate blew up. You know what I mean? And we're all fortunate of that. But at the time, especially like I was set to close a few weeks after like everything hit the fan. I mean, every restaurant was shut down. Half the businesses were shut down. It's like, oh, okay, here I am, like, wanting to start a real estate company. Like, I'm like, this is probably the stupidest freaking idea that I could ever have. Why am I doing this? But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be paying this no matter what. If I'm paying this for somebody else, I might as well just pay for myself, get my own place, use it as an investment and slowly just pay down. And thank God I did it. It's just like, never be scared of when everybody's running one way. I always just find the best thing to do is just run the opposite way of what they're doing. Because if they're doing that, run the opposite way and you're going to see some type of result. It might be a bad result, but most likely it's going to be a good result. Because when everybody's doing something of one thing, I just found do the opposite and you're going to reap the benefits of it somehow. Even if it's a short-term loss, down the road, it will be a long-term gain.
Yeah, there'll definitely be some sort of education from it, right? And like you said, if everybody's running in one direction, there's less space for you in that direction. So why not go in the opposite? Well, there'll be more space because nobody's going to be over there. So it actually allows you to, I mean, you get to make even if it's a mistake, you get to make a decision that you're actually able to do something because there's room, right? And within that room, you'll learn something, whether it's positive or negative, which I think negatives turn to a positive, right? Every time something bad happens, I'm always like, geez, well, don't do that again. So that's a positive to,
Yeah.
your future, like you said, your growth and all of that. That's
I
awesome.
mean, in your world, like, and who would have thought, right? Would you have wished that you were like this guru in industrial? Because industrial is blowing up right now, and it's been blowing up. But at some point, industrial was like nothing. Nobody was
Yep.
doing it. Nobody wanted to do it. And I think that's where commercial is going to be. I think that's where commercial is kind of heading. I think commercial is going to blow up soon.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
I
my
was thinking the
theory.
same thing. Yeah, I think commercials the next space to be.
Yeah.
And then part of that, I think it's, from an investing standpoint, like you said, it's that herd, right? So everybody's rushed into these single family homes. There's just not as many of them to buy for an investment. So like the big boys
Yeah.
are like, well, what am I going to do next? Okay, let's go buy these big buildings instead because those little guys can't get me up here. There's more space over here. So let's come up over here. Let's start building or buy whatever they're going to do specifically in commercial. But yeah, now it pushes
Yeah.
you into a
Yeah.
different area.
Oh, exactly. And people are going to see what those commercial guys are doing. They're going to see that they're getting things at a deal. And it's just going to it's going to elevate that whole market.
Yep. And when you're the first one in, that's better, right? So if these
Yeah.
smart guys
Yeah.
are ahead, right? And then when everybody else starts to realize, wait a second, I need to be in commercial, that's allowing them to, push up or, sell to the guys who are coming in overpaying at this point, right? And then they'll just move back into their single
Absolutely.
family space or whatever the, new thing will be in the next cycle.
For sure. Yeah. It's always cycles.
Yeah. And that's really the thing that I think is it's one of those things that's easy to say, but maybe hard to go through. Like you know, mortgages are tough right now to come by, right? I know mortgage brokers are having a hard time with rates going up, but they just
Yeah.
enjoyed a really good time, right? Rates were really low. Everybody was refinancing. Again, it's just the cycle, right? So it's going to shake out the weak. And those who are able to survive are going to be back for the first time around when there's some other better product, better rate, whatever it is, those guys are going to be set up to succeed in the future. And if you can
Absolutely.
stick
Yeah.
in, you're good because it is just the cycle, right? Like inflation's inflation. Who cares, right? If you own stocks, your stocks are getting beat up. Don't sell, just hang on. I mean, obviously, if it's a really bad company, maybe you want to sell, you make a decision, right? But when you look at these huge companies, like, there's, like, for example, I just heard on the news, like Amazon is down below where it was pre-COVID, right? And
Mm.
it's like, oh my God, it's down so much. But dude, Amazon's not gonna go anywhere. I know they said that
No.
about Countrywide and a couple of the places in 08, 09, but like more than likely Amazon's not going anywhere, right? So call me in 10 years if you're the guy who owns Amazon, you're probably gonna be all right at the end of the day.
Oh,
So
100%. 100%. Now's the time to buy Amazon.
yeah, and if you
Now that
have
it's
the
the
guts to
lowest, buy it.
do it,
Yes.
right? And you're gonna be the guy that's gonna, as I said, you're gonna be the one that got lucky, right? Oh yeah, you bought Amazon when it was no, it's like I had the guts to do it. I had the guts to buy that
Exactly.
house or start the business or whatever you did, right? It wasn't, I
Exactly.
mean, I think there is a luck aspect, meaning more of like, if you're trying, you're putting yourself in the right position to get lucky, right?
Yes.
So it's not,
Yeah.
do people get lucky purely? Of course. But I think if you're putting yourself in the right position all the time, you do get lucky, which is a good
You
thing.
do. You do. Like you said, you're the more things you try, the more opportunity you're going to create for yourself. And that opportunity could be a bad opportunity or a good opportunity. But I think more importantly than like luck aspect of it in life is just being in the right place at the right time, right? So when Bitcoin was at $67,000 or whatever the hell it got up to, I mean, okay, that was a pretty bad time to buy because it was so high, right? But if it went up to $100,000, that would have been a great time to buy.
Yep.
But now that it's at $30,000, everybody's running the other way. Now it's like the best time to buy Bitcoin because you know what it got up to. It got up to 60 something thousand dollars, and you know that it's going to go back up to 60 something thousand dollars and probably higher, right? And that's just with anything. I mean, that's real estate, that's stock market, that's just life. Like it
Yep.
got up to that point at some point in time. So it can get to that point and it will get to that point again. So even more so than luck, I think it's just timing. And if you, not to go back to it again, but like when everybody's running away, like, no, that's when you swoop in on Bitcoin and you buy that, or you buy Amazon, or you buy that commercial building that nobody wants because every single restaurant closed up during COVID, or half offices now started working from home. Like now's the time to swoop in on that stuff because at one point it was expensive and it's going to be expensive again. So I love that. I love that how you said that. You need luck, but I think it's timing too.
I agree. I heard this wealthy guy saying, he's like, I'm excited that prices are coming down.
Me
He's like, I'm
too.
not even upset. He goes, I'm excited because if, as
I'm
Bitcoin
excited.
comes down, he's like, I wake up and it's down 10%. And he's like, I'm just happy I could buy more cheaper because exactly
Yes,
like you said, he's like,
it's on
it's going to
sale.
go back.
It's
He
on
believes
sale.
it's going to go back. Right. That's his opinion. And hell, like, whether he's right or wrong, I mean, but it's just that mentality of owning real estate, restaurants, like you said, like as it's going down, if it's your business, like real estate's our business, right? If I can continue to buy real estate as the market goes down, I'm going to win, right? Because it's going to ride back up. I can do my cash out refinances, hang on my cash. It's going to come back down. I buy again. Like you said, you just get excited because it gets on sale. And when you know it,
And
and
even if it doesn't, like it's still going to pay for itself. You're still
yeah,
going to have tax benefits of it. You know, you're going to enjoy all of the things that every real estate investor enjoyed with real estate all these years. Yeah, it's a bubble now and it's stuff like that, but it's tapering off and it's getting to be a reasonable, like at a reasonable level again, for sure.
yeah,
It had to happen.
yep. And I mean, as long as you, as you said, you buy right and you look at the numbers, it's okay because it's going to take care of itself. You get the depreciation, you'll eventually get appreciation, rents will go up more, you're going to be fine, right? There's so many factors in real estate to make money. Even if you're not directly putting dollars in your pocket today, you
Yeah.
are by all the other benefits that real estate provides us. I mean, I heard this
Yeah.
guy say, oh, you make $200 a month in cash flow. Like, how about, let's look at the larger picture. How much are you depreciating that you're able to save in taxes at the end of the
Yeah.
year? Add that to your
Yeah.
number. How much money are you gaining in appreciation when the market goes up? Add that to your number. So before you start, you start to look at it and you say, well, I'm really making more than $200 a month, even though 200 is in my pocket. But you start to look at that bigger picture, and there's so much more advantages
It's
to
bigger
have.
picture. And what stock can you put into $200 a month, and then let's just say you pay your house off faster or investment property off faster. What stock putting only $200 a month in is really gonna give you that type of return. I
None,
mean,
right? I
I don't,
mean,
unless you get super lucky, of course, but it's it's harder. It's definitely harder with that stock market aspect of it. And I feel like you got to be invested in everything. I do believe in that, but I always feel and I always felt, and I think I always will, is that real estate is definitely the safest investment, no matter what.
I agree with you. I mean, and maybe I'm biased because I'm in real estate, but number one, like you said, diversify, but I'm definitely overweight in a comfortable way in real estate. But because it's
For
the thing
sure.
that I do every day. I know it, I feel it, I touch it. I I'm not saying that I can control it, but I feel more in control at least because I'm in this space and understand it and talk to guys like you that are seeing the market from your perspective and all of us collaborating. It, it's in essence, without doing it, it's investing in your own business, right? It's not necessarily investing into my lending business, but by owning real estate is investing into my business, I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And your lending business is solid. Like that's another thing we got to collaborate on. Like the fix and flip aspect of it. Like that's a whole other opportunity besides the real estate business. I mean, I was on a podcast last week with Handsome Homebuyer from Long Island, and I loved what he said. He's like, real estate is the best space to be in, and he flips houses to buy long-term houses. So like
Okay.
he'll do a fix and flip to buy a long-term investment. I was like, that's just great. Like that's such a smart thing to do because long-term is the key where you'll build the most wealth. But of course, you need the money up front to do that, and he does that by flipping. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I've heard people say, flip one house and then take those profits and buy one and then buy another investment property, right? You kind of
Yeah,
scale it that way. If it's $50,000 to buy a house, you take your 50, you maybe walk away with 100, exactly like Handsome Homebuyer said. You take the first, that one, half that 50, buy a rental, take the other 50, go flip again, and just keep it going. Next thing you know, you're like,
that's a
I've
good
got
point.
10 houses and
Yeah,
just
that's a
got
good
10
point.
people paying rent, and it just grows on its own.
Yeah, that's a
I
good point.
mean, I slowly did it myself. I mean, I would work, I would save money, then I bought a house, right? And then I worked and saved money, and my house was paying me rent, and I put that money into an account, and I was able to buy the next one quicker. And then I was able to get the next one quicker. Then I was able to get the next one even quicker. So now I look at it and say, like, I could buy a house, once a year, once every other year, just from my rental profits. So I don't
True.
take any
True.
money from my rent. I don't live off that at all. I live off of my like my lending business. So I
Oh,
call it like my lending business is my job. So I tell people like, that's my
yep.
9 to 5. That's how we pay rent. That's how we live our lives, right? And then I just let that rental business take care of itself, because one day I'll turn around and I'll be making 15, $20,000 a month, and then I can say I don't even need to worry about the lending business. And I bet you
Mhm.
that's when the lending business will take off, because now all of a sudden you don't have to worry about that or selling those loans or anything. They just, you're like, hey, I'm chilling, and then it starts to come even quicker,
Yeah.
right?
And it becomes more fun. Real estate is the most fun when you don't actually have to do it, which is
Yep.
I was told that too by somebody in the past. And that, I'm not at that point yet. To me, I guess it's still not fun, but I mean at times it is, but like, that's really when it becomes fun. And when you, like you said, when you have that 20,000 a month coming in passively, like that's just that's the real wealth.
Yep.
Brokering deals and stuff like that, like you'll make money off of, you could get rich doing it. And, we're doing that now, me and you, but I feel our real wealth is going to come from long term for sure.
100%. That's why we slowly do that, right? We make our wealth, but we make our decent salary, our wealth right now, like you said, doing this brokering, and just throw a few bucks into a property, and you just throw a few bucks into a property, and next thing you know, you've got both, and you don't need the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. And you
So
cherry pick on what you want to do.
yeah,
You
exactly.
do the fun stuff.
100%. And then you're sitting here. I mean, you know how it is, like trying to get the deal closed, trying to get the deal closed. Eventually, you're like, if the deal closes, it closes. Next thing you know, it's like
Yeah.
it still closes, right? Like that there's. I know that you work very hard to get stuff done, but there at some point there's not much you can do to get that deal closed. You just sit there and
Absolutely.
stress over will it close, right? And
Yep.
then you can call the other agent, the attorney, whatever, and push and prod, and you've got your relationships. There is benefit to that. I do believe that. But at the end of the day, it's going to close or it's not. If that someone told me a friend of mine who's selling his flip, he is the sale fell apart because the buyer co-signed on a loan for a car for someone like a week before.
Oh
So that
no.
agent's probably like spinning his wheels, like there's nothing you can do, right? But if he's
Yeah.
making 10, $20,000 a month in passive income, he's like, hey, no big deal. We'll relist the house, we'll move on, and we'll get it sold, right? Of course, my friend's
Yep.
upset because he can't sell his house now and he's got to put it back on the market as well. But same for him. If he lived off rental income, which he has like over 100 units, so he is doing that.
Yeah.
But that's when it starts to become a little bit more relaxing and a little bit more fun for you to sit back and not be so focused on those individual transactions.
Yeah. Agreed, man. Agreed. You could sell 2 homes a month, still make and call that call that whatever fun you want to call it.
Yeah, now
You
you get
know,
to mess
and
around, right? You're like, hey, I want to buy a nicer car. Cool. You want to buy a vacation home? Like that's what that becomes. You can start, you flip it, right? The regular bills are paid through passively, and the fun stuff comes from the day-to-day stuff.
yes, yes, exactly, exactly. Like Grant always says, Grant Cardone, like, buy your fancy stuff and buy your toys and stuff only with passive income, nothing that you
Yeah.
worked for.
Yeah.
So
You
that and
absolutely,
that
yeah.
and that stuck with me. That really sticks with me.
It's funny because I I've always thought about wanting to buy a Rolex, and I can afford it, but I look at it from that perspective. I'm like, I just
Yeah.
don't make enough rental income to deserve this right now. And at some point when I make enough rental income to justify that purchase, that I don't even feel it because like, oh, these houses just paid for it, like that's when
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. Even though yes, I could afford it today, I can go buy it because I've got the
Yeah.
income. I just can't. There's something
Exactly.
about it that I'm like, I can't do it. I just can't do it.
I can't do it. Just like I can't justify buying like $150,000 car.
Mhm.
Like I just can't justify it. I don't want to. Like, number
Right.
one, we drive too much and we beat the crap out of our cars. But
Right.
like besides all that, like if it's money that I'm working for, I don't want to spend it in that. And I really don't.
I feel so differently
That's a
about it.
good way to think.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
look at it, I'm like, you know how many transactions I did to buy this car? Like, do I really? That doesn't like. No, I
that
didn't.
doesn't feel
I worked
right.
way harder than this car to get this car with that, right?
Yeah,
I completely agree.
exactly.
And to your point, kind of, I see so many people who are flipping and wholesaling that don't buy rental properties. And I think that's such a huge mistake, because what are they going to do when
Yeah,
the market cools off in their niche, right? It's at the
yeah,
end of the day, you need to be building that passive portfolio. I mean, you can make $1 million a year wholesaling, great, but if you don't keep any of those properties. I heard somebody say, when you get money and you're not reinvesting it, like it's kind of like Grant says, you need to, it's like you have to watch your money, kind of like if you
Yeah,
don't pay attention to it, it'll go somewhere. It's like, it's exactly that. So if you're not doing something with your money, it'll find some place, into shoes, into a car, into a watch, into whatever. So a lot of these guys who wholesale are like, oh, I just closed a $40,000 deal, and they go buy something with it, or they go on vacation. Hey, look,
yeah,
go on vacation and buy stuff. I think we should all be doing that. Enjoy your life. But why not take one of those transactions a year and buy a house? Exactly what you're
yeah,
selling, and grow that wealth.
and grow that wealth. Yes, absolutely,
If you look at your bank
100%.
account and you're like, I got 200 grand, then all of a sudden you're going to be like, maybe that car looks nicer now. Maybe that watch looks nicer now, right? But if you
Yeah,
take that 200 grand and you buy a house, now you have no money. Like, what does Grant say? Go broke, right? Now you have no money
yeah,
and you're like, shit, I got to go back to work. I got to build that money back up again. And you
yeah.
keep going.
Yeah,
So,
that's why I truly feel like a lot of these guys, they don't hold on to the money because, and they invest it into smarter things because, like you said, they will spend it on stupid things that they don't need.
yep. Yeah, I mean,
And
it's like,
a
it's
lot of
just
these guys,
natural. I feel like, you look at your account and you're
yeah,
like, let's go to dinner tonight. Let's,
yeah,
those shoes seem a lot cheaper now. I'm going to get some, another pair of Yeezys
yeah.
over here.
No, exactly, exactly. And a lot of these guys that are, always, buying nice shoes, buying nice watches, buying nice cars, like majority of them are full of shit. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like when you look at all of them, they're all full of shit. They all have egos. It's just it's all a pony show. And unfortunately, social media just makes that worse. Like in
Yep.
our business, it's like a huge blessing and it's a huge curse at the same time. Like it can really benefit your business, but unfortunately, you just got to deal with the riffraff of, everybody acting like a big shot on there. And when you're really looking at them, you're like, okay, dude, you're not like, you're not
Right.
that fantastic. You're like,
Yeah,
come on.
and they say that the biggest shots don't even need to, they don't need to show it, right? The guys who
Yeah,
aren't showing it, it's like, be not be scared, but like be scared of that guy, not the guy who's like, being flashy and stuff on Instagram. The guy who's kind of
exactly.
quiet, he's the dude with the money, right? That's the one who's
Exactly.
got the money.
Always how it is. Always how it is. And then if they have money, like, you know, they'll be able to show it in ways that, you can show that they're legit. But a lot of these guys, like, you can go rent a car. You can, now
Yeah.
I heard a thing the other day. You could rent a watch. You can actually rent a watch for like a weekend. Like a Richard Mille or whatever these expensive
Yeah.
watches are, having for a weekend, then you give it back. It's like, okay,
So
what are you
crazy,
doing? Yeah,
man.
it honestly is a sad, like, materialistic world we live in, man. It
Yeah.
really is.
And again, like you said,
It's
Instagram just makes that worse, right? And
yeah,
not to, knock that. Look, we both probably spend plenty of time on Instagram, but it's a good way that just every day reminds you, I want to keep up with the Joneses, right? I'm like, oh, Pete got this really nice new watch. Now I want to get that. I'm like, dude, he rented it and he can hardly
right,
afford his car payment, right? Because he's renting it,
exactly.
he's spending $1,500 a weekend on a watch.
I don't watch.
That's like that.
A hundred
I think
percent, hundred
Grant did
percent.
say something about that, or someone I saw made some comment about that, like about kids these days renting Ferraris for $1,500 for the weekend. They're driving
Yep,
around in a Honda Civic, yet
yep,
they got a Ferrari on the weekend and they don't have a dollar to their name. Go get
yeah.
that passive income to pay for that.
Yeah, exactly. And he always says, invest in yourself. And that's what people think they're doing by investing in themselves, but they're not. Like when he says invest in yourself, you invest in your business, you invest in yourself to make yourself busier and get clients, not to roll up in a Lamborghini. Like nobody wants to see that. I
No,
would never I would never want to list my house with somebody that rolled up in a Lamborghini
dude, I was
because
just gonna say that.
you know, like, it'll hurt you. It's not the best. Don't drive a piece of crap, but you don't want to roll up in a Phantom Rolls Royce.
No way.
List in a house that's probably worth less than the freaking car.
Yeah, it just doesn't exactly.
It
And
doesn't
they're
make
probably
sense.
nervous of you too. Now they're like, this guy's got a $400,000 car. He's trying to sell my house, and it just, you don't have a good vibe with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you imagine, dude? That's so funny if someone did that and rolled up like that on a house. Oh
Yeah,
man.
I was told, like, early on, you always want to show, you always want to know your stuff. You want to drive a nice car and all that stuff and dress nice and all that. You have to, because I feel like nobody wants to work with somebody that's just like a schlep. I do
Yep.
believe in that. Bradley always says that. But I was always told, like, you never want to be like the rich salesperson or the poor lawyer. And when a got to think about it. Like the salesperson, they're doing something right, obviously, but like, you also don't want to overdo it as well. You have to be professional, dress nice, drive a nice car, carry yourself well, know your stuff. But you just got to know. You got to read the room. If you're rolling up to a house that's 500,000, and your car is 250,000, I guarantee you that's not going
Yeah.
to end up good for you.
It's
They're going to
probably
go
you've
with
gone
something
too
that
far in the other
feels,
direction. Yeah, who they can
yeah,
relate to, right? Because how many of your it's a good transition here. Is like, you work with a lot of sellers, right? And I feel like they probably take you not just because you're good at what you do, because they relate with you, right?
hmm
So
hmm
when you're at
yeah,
a sales
yeah.
listing, like is part of your pitch a little bit about yourself so that way they can, right? Because if you're going to that $400,000 home and you roll up in that $600,000 car, I doubt that they're going to relate with you, right? Like here comes some rich hot shot to try to sell my
Yeah.
home, right?
Yeah, it's almost just unnecessary, and you're not going to click with them. I think listing appointments is very little about like the house, the product. I don't bring anything to listing appointments on the initial time I meet somebody, and really it's just getting them to feel comfortable with me. If they feel like I'm too rich to care about their listing or something like that, you're automatically off on the wrong foot. They're gonna be like, what's this guy's deal? Why is he here? Is he going to make me work with, somebody I don't want to work with? And is he only showing up on the first time or whatever the case may be? It, you're not going to click with them. And the first time I either meet a buyer or a seller, like I don't bring any paperwork, just selling myself, getting them to feel comfortable with me and work with me. I don't bore them with knowledge. I don't bore them with things that I have or do. I think that's a common thing that like salespeople do is they constantly talk about themselves. I let them talk. I hear what they want to say and I listen to them and that's it. I don't do anything else. Like on a listening appointment, that's it. Like
Yeah.
I don't bring 1 ounce of paper, all that stuff. And I'll give you, 70 pages, data and statistics and everything that your house should sell for and the range. I'll give you all that. But the first time I meet you, it's just getting you to feel comfortable with me and nothing else. Because people want to buy you. They don't want to buy your service. They know your service and they know your reputation, and that's why they called you and got you through the door. Now it's just confirming that they trust you and that they like you and that they want to work with you.
So I really love that because I was an agent. I had my license. I didn't really do much with it, but we were taught from the beginning is put this listing presentation together, get a nice binder. And I keep thinking to
Mhm.
myself, like, if someone showed up with this stuff to my house, I wouldn't be that interested, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk to you and have a good conversation and understand who you are and what you're doing. Not like anybody can print that out, right? Did you know that 30% of homes sell this much faster if you use a professional real estate? It's like, great, dude. I know that's why I have you here. Like, like
Yeah.
this is what we're trying to
Yeah.
do here. I'm trying to get you to sell my home. And you and I both know, I mean, there's certain things you can do, but like it's going to sell for what it's worth, right? So it's not like
Yep.
you have some secret to like get top dollar for specific houses, right? It's about the relationship. How well do you work with other agents? I mean, if you're a complete jerk, like if you
Mhm.
can't work with them, how do you work with anybody else, right?
Yeah.
So I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that you just go and don't bring anything, because all I've ever been taught at any agency that I've had, and again, I'm big on education, so I've worked for a couple of real estate offices, and I always go to their education because I just love to learn and see what the difference is. But all
Yeah.
of them taught about bringing something, right? Even I've heard some companies like bring like a video book on your listing presentation. It's just like, just because you're a little bit more techie doesn't mean that you're any better than the guy who had the papers that did it, right? So I love that you just show up and you're just like,
Yeah.
let's talk. This is who I am. And I'm sure you know enough about the market that you can answer questions if they are like, hey, how much are you going to list it for? Like, sure, cool. I'm sure like you're selling in the area. You're like, hey, look, I got that listing here. I sold
Yeah.
this. We can be in this area, but that's not really the point of this. It's to get to know each other.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, like, I feel somebody that knows the price of a house before they step into it is completely like, moronic in a sense, because I mean, how can you go into a house and you don't know the finishes that they have? You don't know if they have a finished basement. Yeah, they can explain it to you over the phone, but how many times does a seller explain to you over the phone of everything that they have in their house and everything that they did? And then you get there and you're just like, it looks like you haven't touched this thing from the 50s, man. And you're just like, and then you go in your mind and you readjust your price because what they told you over the phone is not what the
Yep.
expectation you had before you got there. So I just tell everybody, I'm like, how can I give you a price the first time I meet you and give you a whole analysis when I've never been here? Even if I'm looking at old photos, even if you tell me it's exactly the same, you never did a thing to it, I can't go off of old photos because number one, they could be distorted. We know how photography is. And number two, like that's wear and tear on your house. Your dog scratching the cabinets and your kids drawing all over the walls was not in those old photos.
Yeah.
So, or or whatever,
Can't
the
smell the
roof that's
house,
caving in. Exactly.
right? Like,
That's the number one thing. You cannot, and that's probably the most important takeaway is you can't smell the house. So I didn't know you smoked in it for 10 years that you owned it.
great
I
cabinets,
didn't,
man, but like reeks
yeah.
of cigarettes and cat urine.
Yeah, if it smells like cat urine and reeks like cigarettes, I didn't know about that walking into it. So I give a very detailed analysis, but I do it afterwards. If you want to send something, and I was told this by a friend who runs a massive team, does amazing numbers, and what he said was good is the day he goes, he doesn't bring anything. Because you should know the market for sure, which is right. But what he does is, 2 days prior to him getting there, he'll mail them a whole bunch of statistics and really the meat and the potatoes of what's actually in a market analysis is really just jargon that's in there. So he'll mail them all that stuff a couple days prior to him getting there. He'll get there for the appointment and then give them a range of where they should be selling it. And then after, he'll put only the most important stuff in that market analysis
Okay.
afterwards. But the day he goes, he still doesn't do anything. He talks to them, gets them to trust them, and all that. So I thought that was a pretty good method of doing business too in a market analysis.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say was, everybody thinks that their shit's a lot nicer, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
it's like my shit doesn't smell, right? But it doesn't smell because I can't smell it because I've lived with it forever. So
yep,
when you,
yep,
like you said, they tell you the cabinets are great or the layout's really smooth. Well, maybe it's not. You've walked through hundreds of homes. So when you show up, you say, hey, look, move the couch here, do this, do that, right? And you can start to paint this room, whatever the case is, and
yeah,
start to really make something better and get that more accurate price. Oh, you don't want to do any of that stuff? Like, well, then this is what the house is probably going to sell for.
yeah,
You're going
yeah.
to get a
And
discount
sometimes
for
it's
that.
as easy as paint. Sometimes like paint, carpets, and a fresh scent goes a long way. It actually goes the furthest way, in my opinion. You can have older stuff, but if the bones are good, and you do sometimes the littlest improvements. I mean, even you rip up carpets, and if you don't put new ones in, and you lay down those waterproof laminate, like, it's cheap. Sometimes you can do it yourself if you're a little bit handy, and it'll pay for itself. It'll bring you a much bigger return. And I always tell people, everyone looks for a dollar to dollar return, but it's just, if anything, it's going to make your house so much more
Yeah,
and marketable. So it's like, why wouldn't you do it? It's not going to hurt you. I promise you
right.
that. It's definitely not going to hurt you. So just do it. I mean, make it sellable. And yeah, you might entice that damn bidding war that you want, that you feel like you're entitled to. So,
Yeah, exactly.
why the heck not?
Hey, worst case, you don't sell the house and you have a nice freshly painted home that doesn't smell bad anymore.
Worst case, yeah, you stay there and maybe now you don't have a reason to want to go.
Right. Oh, that's hilarious.
Agreed.
So what do you think, with the current market right now, with rates going up, how's that impacting you?
Well, that's like a great unknown, because I don't know how high these rates are going to go. And right now, it's getting buyers into panic mode, which is kind of good and bad. Um, but it's also getting the less interested buyers kind of off the fence and
Okay.
either in the put them officially on the sidelines or just totally wipe them out. So the people that this market, believe it or not, is good for people that were the most serious all along. That got kicked around in the marketplace, that were getting beat up with multiple offers. That I mean, think of how many buyers you have that are like, oh my God, like this is a fantastic offer. Like, why can't they get offer except 20% down, waiving appraisal, limited inspections to no inspections at all? Like, that's who this market is benefiting the most from because it's giving them a right to home ownership and it's giving them that chance. Whereas, like last year, they wouldn't even have that. They were getting gobbled up by people that were cash, people that were like, completely waiving appraisal. Now it gives them a shot. So quite frankly, like honestly, I think of the rates going up as a good thing. I truly do think it was a good thing because yeah, okay, it slowed some of the tire kickers down. The guys that, and you know who they are a mile away. Everybody gets tire kickers. It slowed them down because they're like, oh my God, now I gotta overpay for a house. Plus my rates are at 5%, and they're just jokes. Like they're
Yeah.
complete
They
jokes,
did
and you
you a
know they're a
favor
joke. They
because they
did
were
me a
going to try to come
favor.
in under offer. They were going to look at 100 homes with you. You're like, thanks for saving my time.
Exactly, because right now my time is just the most important thing to me more than anything in life, and like my time is valuable and it's important to me, and I don't want to waste it. And I feel like a lot of the people after COVID that felt like they wanted more space, or they wanted to buy a house because all of their friends were doing it and everybody that they know was doing it, and they felt like they had to get in on the action. You completely wipe those people out, and that's a good thing because they weren't really serious. They didn't want to make it happen. I mean, dude, I tell people all the time, if you want to buy a house or you wanted to sell, you would have made it happen. You would have moved with your parents in their freaking basement for 6 months if you had to, so you could waive
Right.
your home sale contingency to buy. If you wanted it bad enough, you would have done it. And that's what I told people, because that's what you have to do to buy a house in this market. And I would deal with sellers that were like, yeah, we want more space, but we don't really want to list our house so we get offer accepted. But by the way, we need $20,000 seller's concession, and plus we have a house to sell. You're like, okay, dude, like
Yeah,
go
you're not
work with
serious.
somebody.
Yeah,
You're
right.
not serious, man. Like I have serious people that need to buy something and they got to be in somewhere. And like those are the people that I'm targeting on. And with these interest rates rising, you really gave those people a shot at home ownership that I feel like they didn't have last year. Like thank God I wasn't a buyer in this market because I would have had no shot. And I'm just thankful, that I did buy when I did buy, but I really do feel bad for some of these buyers that really are like just they got gobbled up, and I
Mhm.
probably would have given there's some of the buyers that I'm working with, I would have given up. And some of them really stuck in there and they didn't get offers accepted until these rates came up as high as they did. So I think it's a good thing. You're going to slow down in certain aspects, but you're going to do more business in others because you get more serious people.
With that, I never even thought, because I guess you got now sellers that are probably more willing to take a little, take different offers because they're nervous at some point. They are afraid that rates are going to hurt them.
And it absolutely will, because it's going to hurt. Ultimately, if you were approved for 600,000 last year, probably you're approved for 500 now. So what happens is their buying power goes down. So
Yeah.
ultimately that'll bring the real estate prices down. So it's almost like easier to convince a seller too, like, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what your house is worth. Like you got to be a little bit more realistic than you might have been last year. And you can't list or expect these super inflating rates that we once saw. It's just it's dwindling away. I mean, it's still hanging in there a little bit, I feel, but it's going to dwindle away at some point.
I also feel people are very short-term thinkers, right? So everybody's scared right now. Rates are going to go up. They're not going to go up. They're going to do whatever, but we're going to adjust anyway, right? We don't, most humans are thinking in the short term, right? So they're scared right now, and the next thing, I mean, I see it already, right? Our rates are probably in like somewhere in the sevens for our rental product, which is higher than what's probably fours or fives for a residential market. Um,
Yeah,
and it just shocked
yeah.
them at first, right? Now they're coming down. It's like now that they're not shocked, they're like, okay, this is reality. They're right back at it. So it's just like there was a short little period there where they're like, oh my God, this is all going to blow up. And now they're back to like, okay, well, or they're moving quicker. Like, well, we got to get this done now because I don't know, is there going to be an 8 in my future?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's,
exactly. From a residential standpoint, okay, I mean, we might be laughing at ourselves right now and saying how high the rates are, and they might be 7% just on the residential side.
yeah,
And they're like, oh my God, I wish I got it when it was 4.8% that I thought was, I was kicking and screaming about. So it's just an unknown factor. Do it before it gets worse. That's something that I don't think enough people think about. Yeah, you're right. Like they think just very short term, but look, I mean, think of the start of COVID where the prices were. to now, and you only thought it was going to go down, but it only just kept going up. So
So do you
the
have a rough
problem just
number
getting
of
worse.
how high the market's gone up in your area since COVID? Like 10%,
Um,
20%, like just the, you don't have to be,
20 something percent
so the,
from the start of COVID,
yeah,
not even just from like pre-COVID. I would say
yeah.
from the start of COVID to now, home prices were up like 20%.
So I think it's funny because I get people, I'm reaching out to my list all the time. Hey, what are you up to? Are you still looking to flip? Are you still looking to flip? And the constant thing I hear people say is, I'm waiting for the prices to come down. I'm waiting for the prices to come down. So that guy who told me
Yeah,
that in 2020, at the beginning of COVID, the price has now gone up 20%, like you said. So if they come back down 10%, he's still paying more than he would have paid then. And he'll be like, oh, I got a
yeah,
deal. Prices came down 10%. No, you didn't. You should have bought
mhm,
back then, right? You actually
yes,
overpaid 10% from where we really were before. So that leads more into saying, buy now when you can afford it. If you can afford it now and it makes sense now, buy. Stop being
buy
so
it.
focused on like, oh, I'm going to wait until rates come back down. Or I love to say this, it's like it's the car or the Rolex that people love to say, oh, well, I have a 2.75 30-year fixed rate. Like that's what they're telling their friends when they're out to dinner. So now you're getting a
Yeah,
3.25 and you're like, oh, my rate's high. Yet that's better than the other friend who just went at 3.75. And as it circles around, like you said, 5% might be starting to look pretty damn good when rates are 7, but just everybody uses
exactly.
that as a way to measure, right? It's, do you have a nice car or do you have a low interest rate? Everything is just that Instagram measurement, right? What do we talk about at a cocktail
Measurement.
hour? So
Yeah, 100%. Oh no, absolutely. And like, and and I don't even know if people like don't think about this or whatever. But I mean, if you have, let's just say, 2.2% interest rate. I heard this one guy that had like a 2%, right? And he was telling everybody, everybody heard that he had a 2% or maybe even a little bit less. To be honest with you, I don't know if he was in one of those special programs.
yeah,
But the guy bought, he refinanced. It was, like right in the summer of COVID when it was bad, 2020. But the guy's selling his house right now. So you didn't even benefit off the
right, yeah.
1.99% interest rate. If you keep it for 30 years, that's where you
That's how you
benefit.
benefit.
Now, when
Yeah,
you keep it for 2.5 years, it doesn't matter if you're paying 10% for 2.5 years. I mean, you're not benefiting off that, and it's not costing you the long term of the loan. So you got to think about that too. Our generation, they're not like our parents and grandparents when they stayed for 40, 45 years and they got old in a house and that was their pride and joy. Like these guys are out in 5 to 7 years. They want new space. They want new townships. They want new schools. They can't stand their neighbors. And whatever the case is, like they just want out. So,
yep.
don't harp too much on the interest rate because if you're selling in 10 years, I don't care what the rate is. I mean,
It
yeah, you'll
doesn't
see
make
a
too much
mod.
of a difference. Exactly.
Not
It's just
really. Yeah.
you're moving on anyway, and you're going to get a new rate anyway, right? So I tell people with my houses, it's like I don't really care where rates are. Does it cash flow or not from an investment perspective? If it cash flows, I'm
Yeah.
fine. And plus, rents are going to go up, and I'm going to probably refinance in 5 years anyway, whatever the rate is, right? If it's 7 today and it's 12 in 5 years, I'll still refinance because it just
Yep.
makes sense, right? You lower your payments, you get some cash out. So I completely agree with you. All these people who are saying, "Oh, they don't want to, I don't want to pay this, I don't want to pay that," right? But then they're going to move in 5 years. Like,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
cares?
Exactly. Who cares? Just move on to it, and and deal with the circumstance that's there.
Yeah,
If you want to live at home or stay in that rental that you're staying in for another 5 years, I mean that's foolish. You know what I mean? Like that's foolish to me. You
yeah,
get you get into it, and you don't want to wait in the sidelines. Best time to buy real estate was yesterday, and the
yeah,
second best time is right now.
dude,
So
100%, 100%.
future thinking and all that, it's not going to do you any good. Being an overthinker, I always feel is bad. I feel like you need to think and you need to take calculated risks, but you also have to be a risk taker. Like, I mean, when you did your first flip, like how scared were you? I mean, you were probably like, oh my God, this is not, maybe
Dude,
you're thinking of all the negativity,
I
but
was so scared. I was like, I put $40,000 down. I like only had that much. I was like, I'm going to lose all my money. And it was, the funny thing about my first flip, I made $5,000 on my first flip. Like, and I split it with my partner. So we each made 2,500 bucks. Like,
okay.
but
Okay.
the most important thing is I learned so much from that flip that you could not have paid $5,000 in a course to have gotten, right? So to be able to have gotten over that fear, learned all the bumps and bruises along the way, right? You figured it out. We realized why we screwed up, how to fix things in the future, what we overpriced, what we under, like, all these sort of things, right? Like one big thing being like, everybody always thinks they're going to sell it for more than they do. You can't
Yeah.
will a sale to happen. Like you
Yeah.
can't make 350 happen if the market's only 325. So we kind of did that though. We thought like, oh no, that's wrong. We're going to get more. We're going to get more. So the funny thing is if I kept that house, I probably would have made a heck of a lot more money because we sold that a few years ago. And I'm sure, honestly, I'm sure it's worth $100,000 more or something. I mean, not even
Yeah.
kidding, but
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
is.
But you
Like,
can't you can't dwell on that too much, because if it was worth 100,000 less, then, we wouldn't even be having that conversation.
100, yeah,
So
no, I completely agree. It's just, it actually goes to that guy who flips and sells everything, right? If you just kept one or two things, it would work out in his favor, you know?
yes, yes, I know.
But
But it might have tied you up from doing something else, and you never know. So you can't dwell. I mean, you can think of 100 different things that I can think of, a million different things I would do differently from the time I was 20 to now that I'm 30. Like I would do a lot different things. So you really just don't want to bend up on that.
it's kind of funny to your overthinking, right? It makes me think at times super smart people aren't as successful as they could be because they get wrapped, like they almost know too much, right? So they try to
Yeah.
calculate everything
Yeah.
and hit everything perfect and all these things. And the guy that's like doing really well, he's like, yeah, I just flip houses. I'm like, how do you do it? He's like, I just buy it for 200. I put 30 in and sell it for 280 and I move on. Like, he just like, it's like, you don't even
Yeah.
sound like you know what you're talking about. He's like, it's not as hard as everybody says it is, right? I heard some guy say, this is all fifth grade math. All the stuff we're doing is fifth grade math. Like, why do we
Yeah.
try to make a calculus? It's just fifth grade math.
Yeah. It is. It really is. That's a guy. I like that. It is fifth grade math.
Yeah, it's so. Yeah, man, I think we're on the same page. Real
I
estate
love
is
it.
where to be, and we just got to keep going, keep moving forward. So,
I love it, man. I love it.
hey, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for your time. Learned a lot, and we hope to have you on soon again.
Yeah, let's do this again. Let's get some live action too. We'll
Dude, let's get out on
do
that
this in
boat this
public.
summer. Let's go on the
Yes,
boat. Let's.
come out on that boat, man. Anytime you're ready. I was telling
Yeah,
everybody yesterday, because I went out for just like a half an hour just to get out there. It was so
yeah,
nice. And I'm like, you know what? Let's pick a day next week. Everybody bring your laptop and your cell phones, get a hotspot, and let's just work out here. This is a virtual business nowadays.
yeah.
We don't need to sit in the office. Forget about it. So anytime you want, come over, bring your hotspot, bring your laptop, and let's crank it out, man.
Appreciate it, man. It's awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, bro.
All right,
Appreciate
talk
it.
soon. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.